Now let's have a look at a typical SAP system landscape. Hopefully you'll all be familiar with this, but if you do come from outside an SAP development environment, what we do here is we normally have multiple systems that make up part of our landscape. We have a development system that is completely enclosed. It doesn't affect anything that we have in production. Okay, so we have a development environment, a system that we can create our programs on, do our testing, and make sure our code is working as well as we can make it work before we send it on to the next system, which is typically a testing system. So as you can see, we have our development system, we have our testing system. In our testing system, hopefully we've got some business users, maybe a testing team that can carry out tests on our programs before once everything has been signed off, everything has been approved, it then gets moved on to the production system. Once it's in production, then it's live. People within our organization will be able to run our program, and fingers crossed there won't be any bugs. So this three system landscape that I have depicted here, it can change. Maybe you could have a 4-system landscape, a 5-system landscape. Maybe you've got a training system in there somewhere as well. So this is a typical landscape, and because each different system is separate, we have what's called a platform independent system, because each system within our landscape is independent of any other. And the way we move our programs from one system to the other is using the SAP transport system. Now the transport system, when you use it in your development environment, is you will create your programs, create development objects, and place them in what we call a transport. And usually a transport is locked to developers, so only developers can include objects that belong to the specific project they are working on, whether it's a program and a database table and so on. They get locked in a transport, and once we're ready to move them on to the next system, we release the transport, and our basis team would then typically move it to the next system in our landscape. So once we have our development done, the transport gets moved to our testing system. Our tests are carried out, and once we get the go-ahead that everything's working fine, the transport then gets moved to the production system, and that's when our code becomes live. So the transport system is a key component within any SAP system landscape for ensuring we have system integrity with our programs we create. That more or less covers some of the theoretical stuff, if you like. What I want to do is move on and now focus on ABAP programming in general. And the first thing we're going to do is just go through and set up a package that we can attach all our programs to. So what we're going to do, and a typical scenario for when you're developing programs, is we will create, in our case, a package that we're going to add development objects to. But the more likely scenario is that you have packages already existing in your system. So instead of creating one, you will probably select an existing package. We then assign a package to a transport request, and that's what allows us to bundle all our development objects together. Once we have our transport open, we can then create programs as long as we have our developer key. Oops, let me step back. As long as we have our developer key all registered in the system, we can then write our code, debug it, save it, activate it, carry out testing and so on before we actually transport it. So what I'm going to do now is just switch over to an SAP system, and I'll show you how we create a package. So here we are. We have an SAP system open. I'm in transaction SE80, which hopefully you're all familiar with. And then what I've done in the Object Navigator here, I've come down and I've selected Package from the drop down, and I'm going to create a brand new one, STHQ1. You'll see I've already got one existing STHQ. That's where I've tested code out and so on. I'm going to create a brand new one. So I'm just going to press Enter, Do you want to create the object? I'll choose yes. We'll give it a name. I'll choose a software component. I'm just going to choose anyone here. I'll choose create. Now it's going to ask me for a transport request. I'm going to create a brand new one. Click save. There's our brand new request. Give it a tick, and that's it. Our package is created. Now I'm able to go ahead and start creating programs. And to do that, all I need to do is highlight the object here. I mean, you'll know there's lots of ways of creating programs, but I prefer the context menu. I just right click, choose create program, and away I go. I'm not going to create one right now because we'll come to that in later videos. But that's the way we set up a package, and I advise you to do that while you're going through this course so you can keep all your developments in one place. Now, it's pretty likely you're not going to want to be transporting this package because it's just a some testing. It's just some training you're doing, so you're not going to want it to move through the landscape of your SAP system. So if you like, instead of adding your package to a transport, you can create it as a local object.